How would you like to go from this to that? So we're starting off with the first layer of the chessboard, and to begin with, we're going to pour 100 milliliters of part A and 100 millimeters of part B into a mixing container. Here I'm putting a piece of black tape on part B container and on the bottle itself, so that way I'm going to avoid problems coming up in the future here with mixing part A and B. You don't want to mix those together. We're going to make sure that we scrape the entire container of each A and B into that final mixing container, so that way we have equal parts of both going forward, and that way hopefully it'll help cure the epoxy resin easier. Routinely throughout the project, I'll mix a certain amount of part A epoxy resin with part B. I'll then mix the two together for 3 to 5 minutes or until fully mixed. Most of this should be assumed for the remainder of the video, since I won't show it to help expedite this video. In fact, it took me approximately 15 hours to build this chessboard, and I edited the video down to less than 25 minutes. My goal is to cover the bottom of each square on the chessboard with clear epoxy resin. This layer is approximately 1/4 of an inch thick. A lot of this will be fast forwarded to help save some time during this video. Just remember, there is no one way of doing this, and this is my first time ever doing anything like this. I have never used epoxy resin, have never made a chessboard, and I've never made any molds to make any kind of projects before. After I poured a few squares, I used a popsicle stick to help the epoxy spread out through the entire square. The cool thing is that the epoxy would level out by itself. I was just helping it along so that it would cover the entire area. Then I used a butane torch to help in popping any bubbles which presented in the squares. And after sitting for about 45 minutes, I started placing casino-style chips that were so graciously donated by other content creators and crafts enthusiasts. These are not all the chips donated to me. Some of those will be used in later parts of the table build. The first chip is donated by Chris from Dice Degen. Second chip is from Ryan at Mark the Point. The third one is yours truly, CMJ Joe. And remember that we're placing all the chips face side down. And the fourth chip will be from Craig from Old Big Craps. Number 5 is Rack the Black, John from Pro Craps. Number 6 is Leon from Great Craps, Don't Just Be Good. Number 7 is Demon Dog Chris. Number 8 is Jeff from Mid-Atlantic Craps. Number 9 is Ed Robinson, Roll to Win Craps, Practice Like You Play. Number 10 is No Shoes Craps. Number 11 comes with Toothpick Productions, that would be Ted. Number 12 is Wisco 330. Number 13 is Rory, who is Inspector Craps. Number 14 comes in from Steel Legion Lou. Number 15 is Parlay with SJ Young III. And number 16 comes in from Ron at California Craps Club. Number 17 is Jeremy from Color Up. Number 18 is Two Wheel Pair of Dice. Number 19 is the 2022 edition Crafts for the Cure from Casino Gaming TV. And number 20 is Big AZ, Pound the Don't. Number 21 is Alfredo from Texas Crap Shooters. Number 22 is Patty, Green, White, and Rolled from Ireland. Number 23 is Dice Dr. Dan. Number 24 is Brian Holy Roller, playing craps to win a free cruise. Number 25 is Turtles Midnight Craps. Number 26 is Fuzzy. Number 27 is Dice Tosser for Life. Number 28 is Arnell Dice Grinders. Number 29 is 10 Ton and Ed from Roll to Win for Casino Tears. Number 30 is Sleepy 2525. 31 is Justice Gen, and coming in last but not least is number 32 with Larry from Magic Aces. Let's pop some bubbles before continuing. A few of the chips migrated so I'm using a popsicle stick to reposition them. Now let's cover the chips with another 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch layer of epoxy resin. I let the board sit for about 6 hours before starting the colored squares. I chose to go with a greenish tint, using a ratio of 4 drops of green to 3 drops of yellow. Make sure to shake up the dye before using. Let's mix this and see what it looks like. I do want this layer to be somewhat transparent, so I end up using 12 drops of green and 9 drops of yellow. This wasn't dark enough, so I'll add one more single drop of green to each square, and we'll use a popsicle stick to help mix it in. Let's continue to pour the green. When done, I'm going to hit it a few times with heat to get rid of the bubbles. And now let's add white to the squares. I'm using 8 ounces of part A epoxy resin and 8 ounces of part B, along with 64 drops of white. I let the board set for about 5 days simply because of my work schedule. The nice thing is that I can add new layers of epoxy resin even after one layer is set, and the new layers will bond to the other layers. So now let's pour the back of the chessboard. My goal is to make it a black and white swirl. You won't see the back of the chessboard once the table is completed, but it will show through the green squares and will have some really nice character to the board. I'm using a paste-based dye in this portion. I bought the dyes off of Amazon, and I'll leave a link in the description below this video if you want to buy the same dyes. Again, if you use this link to purchase the same dye, I'll earn a commission from the sale, which I will use to be put towards the cost of the build of this chessboard. I'm also using 3 to 4 squirts of white, as well as 3 to 4 squirts of black when I mix the black. The next batch of white kind of had a grayish tint to it, but it is what it is. I'll now use a popsicle stick to swirl the colors together. Again, I have no pattern that I want to achieve, just try making it look cool. let it set for overnight, about 20 hours. Let's flip it over and take the mold off and see what it looks like. Remember that it's still somewhat pliable until we are able to fill in some of the borders between the squares, so be careful not to snap the board into pieces. The next part we're going to do is create a dam so we can fill the borders between the squares. I'm using packaging tape to complete this by building a wall around the outside of the chessboard. Let's mix up some more resin. This time I'm mixing sort of a grayish color by mixing black and white together. I'll be using a kid's medicine syringe and I'll use that to fill the borders. It's kind of hard to see the progress of the step over on the camera, but you will eventually see the packaging tape that did not contain all the resin. It does drop out some on the sides. And if I ever do this again, I'll do a better job taping up the sides of the board. Let's make the chess pieces now. We're going to start by using a syringe to fill just the tip of the molds. These molds were part of the chess set that I bought off of Amazon. Again, I'll leave a link to this in the description below the video. But I bought the molds because the pieces were oversized. So the king measures 4 inches tall, the queen is 3 inches tall, the bishops are 1.8 inches tall, the knights are 2.3 inches tall, the rooks are 2 inches tall, and the pawns are 1.8 inches tall. After I fill in the tips, I'll fill in a bit further and then pick up each piece and try to squeeze any air bubbles out. If you look through the side of the mold, you actually do see the air bubbles that you are squeezing out. Then these bubbles are going to float up, and then we'll use that butane torch to rid the pieces of the bubbles that float up. I don't show it here, but I did the same for all the white pieces. Here we're taking the chess piece molds off. I took a few of them off already and they're on the chessboard if you look at that. But let's do the remaining pieces here. First, I'm just going to remove the remainder of the stuff off the bottom of the mold. And then I'm going to slowly peel the mold off, kind of like peeling a banana or taking your socks off. So basically what I'm doing is I'm turning the mold inside out until it pops loose. Make sure to be careful not to crack or break the tip off of any of the pieces. We'll start with the pawn here. Now the rook. The knight. The queen. And then the king. I put the board on top of some wood strips to raise it from the table. Then I cleaned the board off really good before continuing on with the next step. Pour some clear resin onto each square. And then I'll use my hand to spread it out. I finished by using a popsicle stick to evenly spread the resin inside the border areas. Remember to use a torch to get the bubbles out. I repeated this for about 3 layers, and then I noticed that it was starting to form an uneven layer. I probably should have sanded it down after each coat to keep this from happening by using 220 or finer sandpaper. But since it was too late, I had to go through and sandpaper it down to smooth it out. But here I'm using 60 grit sandpaper to try to smooth that surface. I followed that up using 220 grit sandpaper to help smooth it out even more. Now we're going to add a new coat of clear epoxy resin. I'm trying something a little bit different here. I'm using a paintbrush to paint the resin on. It actually worked really well, but if you do that, make sure that you use a decent brush, something that the bristles will not break off. I used a kind of a horsehair brush on the second coat, and the little pieces of the brush is breaking off into the finish, so it kind of blemished it a little bit, but I was able to kind of fix it as we went through. Then I repeated this step for another 2 coats and then sanded it with 220 grit sandpaper in between each coat. This is how the board actually ended up. So I want to thank those people here that made donations. These are all contributors towards the project. If you'd like to help donate towards the cost of the build or towards the delivery fee to transport the table to the winning bidder, please click the link in the description below this video here, and I'll give you a link towards my PayPal account, and you can just make a direct donation there. Any excess money received will be donated to the Craps Fair Cure event during the event. You can also support my channel by clicking the like and subscribe button. Every little bit of help is greatly appreciated. And I will also leave links to the other videos associated with this table build as they become available. Comments are welcome on this video. Please let me know what you guys are thinking. If you're liking this series, how it's going. Total time spent on the project thus far is 55 hours. This includes 30 hours of prep, 2 hours of shopping, 3 hours of cutting wood, 5 hours for making the chessboard mold, and 15 hours of actually building the chessboard. Plus I have over 35 hours of editing time for all of these videos. Total cost so far, and this is including weeks 1 and week 3, we have Menards $255.83, Amazon $223.68, and Lowe's $7.85, which is a waste of money at the Lowe's, so you can actually deduct that, but you know, it is what it is. Hey, my name is Joe. This is my Craftsmaster journey. Let's make it yours too. See you guys in the next video.